Hello and welcome to the first ever Too Easy Cast. So I thought I would begin the podcast with an episode of myself answering questions that people have sent in, because I thought for those that don't know me or that don't know me very well or know me at all, at least you'll get to know me, get the general vibe of what I'm about. But also, at least I'm going to be talking about things that at least some people want to know about. So, the first question, let's start with something juicy, and that is juice. Let's talk about gear. So, the worst side effect you've ever experienced so far from gear? I'm just kidding. I'm joking. That's such a dickhead thing to do. But I would say the worst, and people talk about this quite a lot. A lot of people, will say tren is the absolute worst. It's the epitome of the worst. And when I've taken it, I've experienced the insomnia, and I've taken it in prep where you're bound to be irritable, especially at the end of it. And I've had moments where it's harder to control that irritability. That's something I really didn't like. And I just noticed that through the lack of sleeping, I just became more irritable. And it was just a counterproductive thing to take, because a lot of people will have this misconception that tren is this holy grail of gear, of a PED to use. But when the side effects are so strong, you're going to have diminishing returns. And this is in the case of any compound that you take. And this is why it's very individual for one, but also this is why you can't just mindlessly take a compound looking at the benefits. Some people will have side effects like NPP, DECA, for example. I noticed that I tend to get more anxious on that. And again, you've got to think, we could just tough it up and soldier through, but that's stress at the end of the day. And stress is a very important thing to manage, because that's going to be a part of your recovery. And if your recovery is fucked, you've got something there to enhance your recovery, and it's diminishing your ability to recover. What's the point in taking it? Why not choose an alternative compound that is going to at least feel a little bit better? You can have a better quality of life on it, but you'll probably make more results. And you don't want to just go, right, the strongest, most potent steroid, I'm going to take that. I've noticed that also I'm an individual who aromatizes quite easy. So testosterone is something that I try to keep on the lower end, because I've noticed pretty much anything past 300 milligrams, and I don't know why this is the case, but unless I have a good amount of a DHT derivative, something like a Mastrone or a Primo, unless I have that in place, then I'm going to be in a place where I'm going to aromatize quite heavy, and I will know this through my emotional well-being, but also I'll start to get the little swelling underneath the nippy nips. And I've been able to get rid of it so far, but one day I think that surgery is going to be calling me, the gyno surgery. It seems like a rite of passage for bodybuilders, and like I say, it's nothing that's noticeable, but again, it's just so easily done. I can aromatize very, very easy, and the cycles I tend to go for very basic. And probably the safest sort of stack that you can opt for is a test base and a DHT derivative, such as a master or a primo, or both. And that's pretty much what I use on prep and off prep as well, through the majority of the time. But that is pretty much the worst side effect. So, how is life without nicotine and weed? So, it's been a month since I decided to do something crazy. I competed, got my pro card, and sat down, and this pro card was pretty much everything that I dreamt of in regards to my goal as a bodybuilder. And I've been bodybuilding throughout the entirety of my adult life, and I really wanted to make bodybuilding my career. So I obtained that, and after I sat down, and I couldn't settle. I couldn't find the peace that I thought this goal would give me. So I sat down, and I thought, what's going to be something that moves me forwards? Why cannot I not settle? Why cannot not find peace? Because that's what I wanted. I just wanted to find an element of peace and satisfaction and gratification from something that I've been wanting to obtain. And for some reason, I felt more uneasy at the fact I was just trying to settle down. And then I came to the realization that I can, if I gave it enough time. It's just that I've had a mindset where it's been go, 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 go to make sure that was achieved. That goal of getting the pro card was achieved. And then I'm trying to settle and sort of go the opposite way. I'm like, with enough time, I'll be able to settle. And then I realized that I know what's on the other side of that. It's complacency. And I know what's on the other side of complacency. That is basically lack of ambition, and that is just settling. And I don't want to obtain the pro card and that be the epitome, and I don't want to peak there. I'm also want it to be the beginning of me going into something, and I want to have that as the bar to set. So moving past this, I thought, right, okay. I essentially realized that complacency can kill ambition, and ambition will lead to success, but success will inevitably can inevitably, should I say, lead to complacency. And that is a vicious cycle. And if you want to see an example of this, look at Conor McGregor. He had that on a much, much, much more extreme case, but that man achieved greatness and dropped off so fucking quickly because of how quick he came. And what actually got him there was him being hungry for greatness. And he then became so complacent, he's a fucking mess at the moment. So with that, I thought, it's pretty much like David Goggins, right? This guy walks around and he's screaming, stay hard. And there's a reason for that, because if you don't, ambition is a perishable skill, and complacency will kill that. So I realized that I need to stop my vices, and I've been smoking weed and vaping for a good while. Weed even longer so, and that was me being able to be comfortable and probably, definitely numb a lot of things in the evenings. It started off as a recreational thing where I would do it for enjoyability and pastime, and then it was more of a numbing factor. So I would get high to get by. And people say it's not an addictive substance. It very much is, you know. I have ADHD. And when you have ADHD, you are prone to get addicted, more so because ADHD is a dysregulation of dopamine. So obviously, weed is, a lot of people self-medicate ADHD with weed because it stops your mind from racing all the time. So I was smoking that in the evenings religiously, not a crazy amount. I wasn't getting high throughout the day because I just want to be able to function. I want to be able to do anything of significance if I was to do that. Trust me, I don't have that superpower like a fucking Snoop Dogg, where this guy could be fucking smoking an ounce and he's absolutely sound. With myself, I was getting high in the evenings, and a few years ago, I also started vaping, and I never smoked before. And vape's the worst thing because they're so addictive. You get addicted to them so fast. They've got nicotine in. And nicotine is this fast-acting nicotine where it enters your system quick and leaves your system quick. So you get that rush and then it goes, and then you feel compelled to have another toke, and then you can build up that addiction and that tolerance very, very quickly. And I noticed I was puffing that like a chimney, especially through a prep. So recognizing they were my two big vices that I was relying on to be comfortable, I went cold turkey on them, like that. So that's just basically a very long-winded answer to go, how is life without it? Initially, it sucked because there was a large adjustment period. There was a very large adjustment period because that wasn't the only thing I did to throw myself into discomfort. Again, the incentive was I wanted to grow and develop as a person and find new parts of myself, because last year, the year that I obtained the pro card, I had to really dig deep in the venture of coaching myself for that pro card. And through that process, I found a lot. I learned a lot about myself, and it really grew me as a person. I wanted to continue that trend essentially, so I got rid of those vices, and I also moved from the place I've lived in my whole life, which was Stoke-on-Trent. I don't live there anymore, and I've trained pretty much my whole training career at Strength Asylum. It's a great gym, but I recognised that was really the main incentive behind staying there. And with living somewhere for pretty much 27 years of your fucking life, I felt like I was not exploring the map that was available. I felt like I was in this game and I was just in the tutorial area, and the Stoke-on-Trent is not a brilliant place. It's not a luxurious place. It's not a land of opportunities. So I notice I act better with a very intense and urgent manner, and that keeps me accountable. And I'm a very all or nothing guy. So I wrote a letter to my landlord saying, I'm going to leave this place. And I handed in my notice for the flat I was living in. I had a month to go. And that month, I had to go find a place to stay, or else I was going to be homeless. And I've been there before, it's not great. And I was like, gold, that's really going to get me off my fucking arse and stop me from just fantasizing about the idea of moving out of Stoke. And I've moved. The place I've moved is Derby, and I realised it's not a million miles away. I realised that's not like a crazy move across the world, but it's a step out of my comfort zone. Amongst that, I sold the majority of my shit. At one point, I was even trying to sell my TV. It didn't sell in time, and I realised now that I was just being crazy for the fact that I was just trying to get rid of as much shit as possible and make my life as different as possible so I can adapt in this new way and become, again, a different person. It's like pushing myself against the wall and seeing how I mutate and just poking the fucking bear as much as I can and just putting myself in a new environment and a new routine. And like I say, that initial period was rough because all that happened at once. I had the cold sweats, I did not sleep properly for days. I'm still going through the adjustment period now. The craving has been intense, and a lot of the feelings that I was numbing has come into play, good and bad. So I noticed I was getting high, and initially when you get high, you have this feeling where music sounds better, TV shows more entertaining, and like everything just seems better high. That was gone. I noticed I was just numb to everything. I wasn't really feeling. So the adverse effects happened, and I started enjoying all those things more so. But I also noticed that I was numbing a lot of, I don't want to say, for like, maybe for lack of a better word, probably trauma. Maybe trauma, yeah. Some negative shit I was feeling, and that all was surfaced. And instead, and this is, and a lot of people since I've shared the facts that I've stopped these things have said to me that they also wanted to stop, and then they failed to do so. And one of the biggest triggers is they felt like shit, or some shit has happened to them externally, and they've gone into what is giving them comfort. So I didn't want to do that, because I wanted to learn an alternative method to cope and deal with it. And that was part of me adapting into a new person, and again, just sort of mutating into hopefully a better person. I feel like I'm still going through that. It's been a month. I feel like I'm still learning to adapt to this environment, find my way around to this new routine, and just establish something. And there's a lot of discomfort that has come with that, but there's no regret, because it's exciting. And essentially the way I see my life is I'm trying to write a book that is not just full of filler, where it's this mundane, monotonous, everyday thing. And that, when I was sitting trying to settle, was the shit that was scaring me the most, because that's what I had lived before that year where I was attempting to get the pro card. Like, it was just a very monotonous life of just rinse and repeat. And yes, I love bodybuilding, and yes, bodybuilding is monotonous, but it doesn't have to be the same day every day for the rest of your life. You can do other things, and you know, what's the point in living life if you don't evolve? If you don't try new things, experience new things, you just stick with what you know, because you might actually come across something that is fantastic. I didn't know I would love bodybuilding, or even going to the gym, until I fucking tried it. You know, like I had no idea I had a passion for the gym until I stepped foot into it. I was like, oh my God, this is great for some reason. I love this. But who would have thought? Like, if you told a younger me that I would have loved that shit, fuck. I would have called myself insane, because I wasn't a very sporty person at all. So I'm adapting, and this is me just answering sort of two questions in one, because that's the biggest plus and the biggest challenge of relocating. And that's one of the questions. Is the biggest plus is there's new opportunities to become a better person, to settle and experience new things. And so far I have experienced different things. Obviously this podcast is something new that I'm starting, and I want this to be excellent. I want to become the greatest version of myself. As in, like, if anyone's seen, and I'm a sucker for the fucking superhero shit, if anyone's seen Infinity War, where Doctor Strange is looking at all the different possibilities. I want this to be the possibility. I want this to be the fucking multiverse where this is the greatest version of myself. And that's not hand in hand with an easy life. So that's the challenge as well, is I've got to be uncomfortable. And I've got to find ways to consistently make myself uncomfortable. And then I could be a completely different person, and hopefully a great person, a virtuous person that can have a positive impact on people. That's my aim. And that actually leads into the next question. The plans for 2025, the remainder of 2025. We're only in January. To make an awesome podcast, for one. And this podcast, the aim of this one is not to be a generic bodybuilding podcast where I'm just talking to bodybuilders about bodybuilding. Yes, there's going to be bodybuilding involved. I'm a bodybuilder. I love bodybuilding. But I also, it's going to be really me exploring different areas of life and talking to people from different backgrounds, different art forms, different platforms. And that's what you're going to be seeing on this podcast and from myself. Essentially, I'm going to be reincarnating myself this year through the content that I create. I'm going to be doing a bunch of side quests. I want to, if I can, obviously progress immensely in bodybuilding, because again, that's still a priority. But at the same time, I want to experience life in a way that I've never experienced it before to a large extent, whilst trying to progress immensely through bodybuilding. And I believe those two could go hand in hand if I handle it right. I don't want to focus too much on trying to live a life where, and I've never been this type of person anyway, where I'm like just fucking partying and everything and fucking doing some crazy shit. Again, I've come off vices, so I'm going to be taking shitloads of drugs to experience life. And also my aim moving forwards, and this started last year because I had a very sobering epiphany, which, came from the realization I was living a very complacent life and I was not in a good environment and I wasn't living a life that I was happy with. I love the process of bodybuilding, but I needed to do things different, and I wanted to pursue the truth of that came from the pursuit of truth, is realizing I'm not happy here. I had to be honest with myself and have a hard conversation and go, I'm not happy doing what I'm doing. I'm not happy where I'm at. I'm not happy, in my environment. There's some people in my life that I wasn't very happy to have in my life, which I was in denial about all these things, and that, again, I'm trying to pursue the truth here. So I'm pursuing the truth within myself and externally. And I want to continue to pursue the truth. But I also want to do that with virtue as well. Because I realized through me being in a strong sense of denial about, and just denying what the truth is with myself and my life or whatever, I was becoming a person that I wasn't even aware I was becoming, and I was acting in ways that I didn't want to be acting. And moving forwards, I believe the combination of pursuing the truth and with virtue, not virtue signaling, so not seeming good, but being a good person. So it doesn't matter if every single fucking person thinks I'm a dick. If I know that my intentions are good, I'm true to them, and I question myself and I hold myself accountable to them, then I'm going to live quite an adventurous life. And it's going to be a life of the unknown. Because, this actually resonates a lot with what Jordan Peterson says. he sort of spoke about this, and it's crazy because I came to this sort of conclusion and then saw him speak about it, which sort of affirmed that this was the actual path that people do go on, and a conclusion that other people do go on, and he talks about it brilliantly, where a lot of people will craft their realities through lies, sorry. They'll craft their lives through lies about the people around them, about who they are and whatever, and that blinds them. I don't want to do that anymore. So that started in 2024, and that's also another goal of 2025. I want to be the best person I can be. I want to be the best bodybuilder I can be. Whether, and competitively, whether I do compete this year or not, I'm going to qualify for the Olympia, and I'm going to keep throwing myself into that goal until I achieve it. Much like when I was an amateur, I kept throwing myself into the goal of being a pro until I eventually got it. And I'm going to keep doing that until I qualify for the Olympia. And I'm going to do that. I will do that. That is a promise. I put it out there that I was going to be a pro. I was going to get myself there. I'm putting that out there now. And the reason why I do that, it's not through arrogance. It's because there's a difference between arrogance and self-belief. The arrogance is when you're saying it and you haven't backed it up. There's no reality that you've backed it up by, and you're not willing to back it up. You're not going to. But I have the belief that I can do it. And that is backed from my previous actions of me throwing myself in there into the unknown and actually coming out the other side and going, shit, I've achieved something. And through that has killed a lot of self-esteem issues, I suppose, and also a lot of imposter syndrome, because I'm inevitably being backed by the reality of my own actions. I've killed a lot of self-doubt. So that's the aim also moving forwards. Again, putting that out there holds me accountable because it all ties together. I'm trying to tell the truth as much as I possibly can. I'm trying to tell the truth. And that's my intention. And if I say something, if I put it out there, I've got to, one, be careful of what I say, especially if it's an absolute. I very rarely use absolutes unless I'm meaning on acting on them. So if I say something as an absolute, I'm going to have to fulfill that. I'm going to have to. So yeah, that's just pretty much the plans for 2025. Create brilliant content the best that I can. Give as much back to people who are following and supporting the best that I can. Be the best coach that I can be for my clients. Be the best bodybuilder I can be. Every endeavor that I'm doing, just give as much as I can, throw myself into it, and not waste a fucking single day in pursuit of those things, and be the greatest version of myself, essentially. And talk's cheap. Actions speak louder than words. So I need to prove that. I'm just saying things at the moment, but I will prove them. I'll prove these things. So when I'm next competing, I would love to compete this year. I've never actually done a season year after year. It's always been do a season, have a couple of years off, do a season, have a couple of years off to grow. And I think now I'm at that place in bodybuilding where pushing up is taking such an extremity that it's probably healthier and more enjoyable if I was to prep more frequently, but also the rebound I've noticed I can respond very well from. And because I've never done it before, I've got to try it, you know? Again, I'm all about trying new shit at the moment. That's my thing. And just doing shit that scares me as well. I think it would be I think, in my opinion, it could be a ballsy thing to try and qualify for the Olympia the year after you fucking got the fucking pro card. Will I get it? Who knows? I'm going to keep throwing myself at it. But this is dependent on how my shoulder is, because for those that don't know, my shoulder is dislocated in some way. I've decided to go through the NHS. The NHS are really good at not doing anything to help, from my experience, with my shoulder and other things. And yeah, we'll have to see. It might require surgery. And, you know, if they just put on me that I've got a surgery in a weird part of the year, it might not happen. But the stage is never going to go anywhere, and I'll lean down at some point because, again, pushing up's so horrible from my previous experience, because it's just taking more and more to do so. It's a more extreme thing, more calories or whatever. And I never understood why professional bodybuilders found it so hard to push up, and found prep to be the respite until I got to a certain point with my physique and acquired a certain amount of muscle tissue. And I was like, okay, I understand now. And my last prep just felt like legit respite. I was like, whew, I'm so excited to not be force feeding all day. That's fantastic. So definitely, if I don't compete this year, which I would like to, and if I do, it'd be the end of the year. But if I don't, I'm still gonna do a decent fucking cut to hopefully create another rebound and give me perspective where my physique's at. I should post more training, which I will be doing, because I'll also be making vlogs. I need to get that back in the investment prep series finished. I want to create like a recap of how that went, a bit more of a behind the scenes of stuff, so people can see that if they're interested. And I also want to be able to vlog what's going on and in my day-to-day life, and that's part of me just adding content, and it will be inclusive of the training that I'm doing. Again, I'm training at Ultraflex at the moment. That's one of the reasons why I chose Derby. Ultraflex Derby, because one of the things I wanted to do was be a small fish in a big pond. There's a bunch of pros walking around there. There's a giant gym, loads of new kit. And I'm going there and I'm just training like a fucking crazy motherfucker. I'm training like a psychopath. That's how I train anyway. That's how I train for years. And I want to continue to do that. I want to show you guys more so what that looks like on a regular basis and take you guys through that. I've invested in a bunch of shit. As soon as I moved here, I was just investing in a bunch of shit to help create content, help create this podcast, and yeah. Okay. So the next question: is there any benefits to adding GH pre-workout? There can be, for sure. It depends how much GH that you're on. But you can have it pre-workout. People, if you're on a bit of GH, splitting it, I would say, is definitely beneficial rather than having a big peak and then fall. But that's much like with your anabolics as well. And it makes sense. A lot of people will have a good amount of their GH pre-bed because it does assist with sleep. And it depends. If you notice that you become quite lethargic off the back of taking GH, then potentially not taking it pre-workout. Potentially taking it pre-workout may not be the best idea. really. So I would say it's a series of trial and error, but if you're on if you're on a decent amount, like 4 IU plus, it's worth splitting that throughout the day, at least, quite evenly throughout the day. Even if it's at the start of the day, at the end of the day, I think that's going to be your best bet for bioavailability and just the best results, really, my friend. Okay, so one from my sponsor. This is from my fucking sponsor. Illegal Nutrition. I know how much you like our pump formula. Who's your favourite porn star? That's like, I don't understand how that relates to the first part of the question. And a porn star replied, if he doesn't say me, he's getting blocked. Funny story. I did a podcast episode with that porn star, and that's going to be out soon. So keep your eyes peeled. Like I say, I'm going to be doing some fucking different type of podcasts to what you might have thought this one's going to be. And it is a podcast of talking, by the way. But in regards to the porn side of things, I don't actually watch porn. Actually, legit. I think I'm quite conscious, again, especially with having ADHD, of where I'm getting my dopamine from. And, if people want to watch porn, that's sound. I'm just really, it's kind of a focus of mine at the moment, just really being conscious of where I'm getting my dopamine from, where my vices are, and not being, I don't want to stop weed and become an excessive masturbator, essentially. That's what I'm trying to say to you guys. Another question is, do I truly believe there is such a thing as maxing out genetic potential unassisted? Or do we get to a point where gains are so marginal, assistance is the only way to notice difference in strength and aesthetics? Example, training 10 years, naturally strength is obviously increased and better muscle maturity conditioning, but overall size is relatively the same for years. Okay, so the natural limit is an often debated thing, in my opinion, from what I've seen, because I spent years competing naturally. I did my first 7 years of training naturally, and I did a couple of seasons as a natural bodybuilder. In my opinion, from what I've seen, there's 40-year-olds who've been training 20 years still being able to make good progress. When I say good progress for a natural individual, it is going to be marginal past a certain point. Of course, where your first couple of years, that's where you get your beginner gains, and that's where progress is relatively fast, because you can respond on pretty much fuck all, and then you have to work a little bit harder to create an adaptation from your body, and that requires you to really focus on refining ticking the boxes. So off the back of this, it's important when you do get into it, just find a passion for just going to the gym and somewhat eating correctly, and you're going to grow quite nicely. As you get deeper, it is important to really refine your approach and try to optimize it the best that you can. Again, not through the sacrifice of your enjoyment, because then you're not going to be able to sustain it. And if you're able to constantly refine and work harder and harder, so find better ways to recover, find better ways to train, whether it be harder or refining your execution, and being able to eat better and better, and just, like nail your nutrition, and you're consistent with that, you're going to be able to keep progressing. But it's not going to be as big and as fast as someone who's assisted. That's obvious, and there's a genetic thing to this as well. Some people can have a higher genetic ceiling than others. Unfortunately, that is part of the game of any sport. And you can genetically keep going and going and going and going if you're quite a genetically gifted person. And again, I've seen people in their 40s and they've been able to just progress and become awesome natural bodybuilders to the point where people are going, oh, you're a fucking idiot if you believe that they're natural. No, they've actually done exactly what I've just mentioned, and they've done that for a decade or two. And they've become incredible. And they've built this crazy amount of muscle maturity. And also injury prevention's one as well. If you get injured, you fucked it. But this is going to be exactly the same for someone who's on gear. There's going to be a ceiling where genetically you can get to quite easily by doing fuck all. And then you're going to have to work harder. And more gear is not the answer. To a certain extent, yes, taking TRT, if you took above TRT, you were in super physiological ranges, took a little bit more, it's going to work, but it's not like you constantly progress your gear, your ability to grow increases. No, you'll just have diminishing returns, as I mentioned the first part of this podcast. So, to answer your question, is there a genetic limit? Is there a natural limit? Sorry. Yeah. Not really. You can keep progressing to a certain age. And then all of us, no matter if we're assisted or not, this is very depressing what I'm about to say, will a trophy will go backwards and then die. And that is the cycle of life in bodybuilding. We become great and then we go backwards. When? Well, it depends. It depends on how well you've looked after your body, injury-wise and health-wise, and also, the amount of effort that you've put in and how clever you've handled your training, etc., etc. So to answer the next question, it is, what do you feel is the hardest part of bodybuilding? And it is that what I've just mentioned. And one of the hardest things is the consistency. It's the monotony of it. And as I've pretty much touched on earlier in this podcast, it's a very monotonous process. It's very easy for people in the first few years of doing it to go, I'm going to do this forever with such great intent. But yeah, try that a decade in. There's a lot of people that will start and they go, I want to be a pro. Okay, cool. I've had people come up to me and want to be clients. They say, I want to be a pro in a couple of years. And this is at a time I'm still trying to get my pro card. I'm like, I'm about a decade in and I've still not got it. Now my question to you is, if you don't get it in a couple of years, do you still want it? If you don't get it in 5 years, do you still want it? If you don't get it in 10, do you still want it? Because that's what really fucking separates people. That's hard. It's very fucking hard to still want something with that same passion for that long. That's consistency. And to become more intense, to be more intense, because that's what I've just said. That's what it requires for your body to adapt to a new place. It requires you to be more intense with your approach and to take it serious and to be consistent with that and to optimize and find new ways to get your body to adapt To be able to do that consistently for a long period of time is very fucking hard. But this is how you become successful in any endeavor. If you want to be great at anything in life, you've got to be willing to not just do it with intensity for a short burst of time. You've got to be in it for the long run. Even when it looks like it's not going to happen, or you look like you're barely making progress towards it, and you look like all the fucking effort you're putting in is just not worth your time. You've got to have this hope that it will pay off. Because just speaking from my own personal experience, that was my experience with the pro card with me. There was times where I genuinely did not think, I was like, I don't know if this is worth it. I don't know if it's worth it, you know, because bodybuilding is so expensive, especially if you're assisted as well. It's so time consuming. I'm sacrificing so much to this, and I haven't yet achieved anything really. And I've already put so much time, energy, and effort in, and risk. I've gotten nothing really. I don't know how far I've got to go. But I've got to keep carrying on and just hope. And just the fucking blind hope. Nah, I'm going to get there. And that's the hardest shit. And then being able to do that, this is the next hardest bit. Being able to do that and balance yourself to not fall so deep into it where you fucking hate it, and to find new ways to keep enjoying it and whatever, and to balance yourself with other areas out of life, because you know it's important. And that's very hard. The reason why it's important is bodybuilding is the art of pushing and pulling back. If you went into the gym and train like a crazy person all day, every day, your body will tell you to fuck off. If you bulked for as long as possible, harshly, your body will tell you to fuck off. You dieted to such an extreme, you know, aggressively forever, eventually your body's going to tell you to fuck off. There's always going to be elements of needing to pull back. And that's why I love bodybuilding. It's a great teacher of balance. You shouldn't train too much or too little. You shouldn't eat too much or too little, rest too much or too little. And there's all these little intricacies. You shouldn't focus too much on form or too much on intensity. You know, and there's so many examples. So finding that balance and matching that with just relentless consistency, that's how you do it. That's how you win. Honestly, you've walked that balance. If you can do that very well, well, you've won. This is how you win. This is how you beat people who are genetically gifted. You know, and you do that intelligently as well. You know, you have an intelligent approach. You put the muscle in the right areas, etc. Yeah, that's how you beat people who are genetically gifted. This is how you overcome the odds. This is how you beat the status of being an underdog, really. Because, again, it's hard shit. If you're willing to do the hard shit up here, not only is that a genetic gift, but also that is something that very few are willing to do. I've spent long enough in this sport to know there's levels to the type of intensity, consistency, and work ethic that people are able to give. And I've seen people who can be great miss out on their potential because they don't have that in them. I've seen people who are great, but they could be even better because they don't have that in them. You know, and then very rarely you'll have someone like a Ronnie Coleman who is just so genetically fucking gifted and obsessively relentless with his approach. He's able to fucking be the best in the world, you know? That's what it takes. That's what it requires, and it's very fucking hard. But if it wasn't hard, it wouldn't be valuable or because if it was easy to obtain, if someone was like, cool, there's this physique, there's that pro card, there's, you know, your Olympia qualification, whatever the fuck you want in the sport, if you were handed it day dot without needing to do what I've just said, then you've essentially, you're not going to value it. You won't. Like if someone said to you, I walked up to you and said, hey, you're Mr. Olympia. I'm like, okay, cool. You wouldn't really, for what it takes to become Mr. Olympia, you're not going to value that the same. You're going to be like, okay, cool. I'm kind of like, you know, that's why it's called delayed gratification. It's got to be delayed. Like it took me 11 years to get a pro card. I'm so glad it did, because it did feel sweet to get it. And every time I look at it, it's a symbol. It's not about the pro card. You know, it's not about, oh, I'm a pro. It's looking at it and going, that's a symbol. And that allows me to, again, be backed by reality. Because I'm like, shit, if I could do that, then maybe I could do some other cool shit. And that's what's led on to that. And I wish for as many people to feel that as possible. But it takes a lot of sacrifice. And you've got to sacrifice short-term gratification. There's little comforts that tell you, I'm going to stay in bed tonight. I'm just going to watch some TV. I'm not going to go to the gym. I'm going to eat some shit. I've earned it. I'm just going to, you know, not bother this year. You know, whatever the fucking excuse is, that's you just taking away from your goal, your dream, one bit at a time. So that was a long answer, but yeah, that was a long answer. But I believe that is I believe that answered the question, you know. No, my questions are all over the place, so you'll have to bear with me. All right, I'm going to find one. My current target weight, I'm not focusing on trying to push a weight. I'm already pretty close to the heaviest I've ever been in my life. And another question was, am I currently bulking? Yes, I'm bulking. And I am a few weeks into a proper off season after doing a health phase, after competing. And I competed about 9-10 weeks ago, I think. And that's when I finished prep and I'm gaining now. I'm not trying to chase a weight, because if I was to do that, I would really physiologically fuck myself and just feel awful, be completely immobile, struggle to tie my shoelaces, and just have poor appetite, poor digestion, and also be quite fat. I could have put on a lot of weight, yeah, cool, but it's about actually putting on muscle, not weight. So even if I was to be at my peak weight that I was at last time, like my absolute peak weight, which I didn't hold for too long, so I don't really class it as my peak weight, which was 260 pounds, around about 120 kilo, roughly, I think. If I was to do that, but look a lot better, I'd be happy with that. Saying that, 270 pounds sounds cool. But again, like, it's whatever. Like, would I rather be a good 260 rather than a sloppy 270? Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, I fucking would. Which superhero villain would you be? Yeah. I fucking love, from a superhero standpoint, I think, well, I've got a Deadpool top on at the moment. I'm trying not to fuck with the mic, but yeah. This guy is like my spirit animal, because he just, what I like about him is he just, the character just doesn't take anything serious. And that's how I like to approach life, is it's not that deep. It's not that deep. We're here for a limited amount of time, and you may as well just have fun with it. But he still gets the job done, and he just tries his best to do right. But he's a bit of an anti-hero as well. I like that. But there's loads, I love fucking Thanos, because especially the cinematic version, the philosophy, the philosophical mindset, and just how dominant he was with the ambition he had, even though it wasn't like the best ambition. It wasn't one that I personally would aspire to have, kill off the half the universe. But what a fucking awesome character. But again, like, Iron Man's cool. I find myself, and if I was to get a tattoo, it probably would be like this image of the Batman and the Joker split in half, because I appreciate Batman's venture for justice and virtue, and also vengeance. But also the Joker, I can resonate with a lot of shit. There's a lot of fucked up things in the world. And again, he doesn't take it too serious. Like, he just does shit for just doing shit because he can. And he's chaotic as fuck. And sometimes I just feel chaotic as fuck, but I leave that side in the gym. When I go in, I just let it all out. And then outside, I try to be more so the virtuous person. But, like, I feel like that'd be a cool. I'm way into my fucking superheroes to give an absolute on this, Deadpool's pretty cool, I would say. I'd say Deadpool's a nice in between of all those things that I've just said. Okay, so a question. Dream 3 blunt rotation. If I could smoke weed with any 3 motherfuckers, who would it be? I think people would obviously say like a Mike Tyson, Joe Rogan, and fucking Snoop Dogg. I think that's what they would say. I would like to see, you said dead or alive as well. I would like to just get high with people. I think it'd be awesome to get high and just chat with Joe Rogan, because you just talk about shit. I think Snoop Dogg would kill me, but I would love to just talk with him as well. I think it'd be cool. But again, like, you can also see that. You've seen the conversations, you can already see the conversations and probably expect them. I would like to see, like, what it would be like to fucking smoke weed with, like, a Michael Jackson, A fucking Eminem. I'm a massive fan of Eminem. Anyone who knows me, and I think his mind is crazy. A crazy person. And I think an interesting mind to sort of, like, can you imagine, like, again, smoking weed with people who don't smoke weed? Really? Can you imagine smoking weed with a Jordan Peterson? What the fuck is that conversation going to be like? I know I've got to pick 3, but I think also Elon Musk. What a crazy brain. I think it'd be absolutely manic, actually, to just fucking try to have a conversation with Kanye West. To see if he just chills the fuck out when he's high. But also just people who just don't get high, man. Like, it's always fun. I don't know, for anyone who smoked weed, if you've ever gotten high with someone for the first time, or it's their first time, that's always a funny one. And someone with a large personality, seeing them get high for the first time, I think would be fucking extremely hilarious. Now, final question. We're coming up to an hour now. Pretty much. I've been talking to myself for an hour, which is crazy. But so as some may know, I coached myself to the pro card last year, and then I entered Prague, where that was my first show. I was going to say technically, but yeah, it was my first pro show. That was 2 weeks from pulling out of prep because I got the pro card that got what I wanted out of that season. And then I saw the Prague Pro and the people that were entering it, such as the moustache guy and the other guys as well. I decided to enter that. And I had 2 weeks prep notice. And the question is, what was my experience of working with Tom like? That's pretty much the question. It's a tricky one because a lot of shit happened. In those 2 weeks, and this is the fucking miracle how I didn't come last. Like I said, like if I don't come last, then it's great. That's a win. Because I just got a pro card and I had 2 weeks of fuckery. I was ill. Like, it's like as soon as I decided to go back on prep. Bear in mind, I had a couple of weeks of being out of prep, and post-show, you tend to treat yourself on some shit. Then I had 2 weeks to pull that off and try to beat the package and try to stand amongst literally the best in the world. And my body was like Murphy's Law. It was like, fuck you. Became ill. I jabbed my leg. That blew up. That's something I need to share because that's a horrific thing. I had to aspirate that with a green needle in the most painful spot. Before that, I was limping all over the place. I could barely walk. And then, as I pulled that out, I lost about 10 pounds through a bad stomach. And then it was time to fly out to Prague. So, the one thing that I'm thankful for is, like, Tom did offer to help me out. He offered to help me out when I was like, hey, I've got a crazy idea. He was like, would you like any help? I was like, wow. I appreciate that because he didn't have to do that. And that was a risk, but he was putting his name to it. It was, like to the point where people are asking how it's gone. Like, people know that I was working with Tom. A lot of people were, and I could have been an absolute dick and just ate cake and just had his name put to him and gone, oh, he's looked a lot worse since working with him, but I didn't want to do that. And I always appreciate that because, again, he didn't have to do that. And it was a lot of shit. He just jumped in on a process where he didn't have the background of the prep to work with. And, when you're working with a client, it's ideal to have time. As much time as possible with them so you can set them up how you want them to set up so you can make the appropriate manipulations and guarantee them with more certainty because you know the body better, which Tom didn't have, which again, big risk for him. And that fuckery happened. But what I've noticed is I boxed myself into a place of not being very coachable. Because when Tom was suggesting things, I was like, no, I think we should do this. And fair enough, he met me halfway and I tried to relinquish control as much as possible because that's what I wanted. I wanted to be able to give Tom as much control as possible because coaching myself, anyone who's done that for a show, it's hard because you've got to constantly keep yourself objective. And that's why I wanted to do it anyway, because again, I wanted to have this venture of the truth. And I thought one of the best ways to do that was try to connect my mind with my body. And if I could go through a process with a goal that has a lot of urgency to it, which is a lifetime goal for me. If I could do that and achieve that and remain objective throughout, then that's going to prompt a lot of personal progression. But that took a lot of mental energy. And just having that mindset where I was like, I've done it, I've got what I wanted, I'm coming out of prep, and then to go back in it, I was like, I think I'm going to try to hand over the reins to someone else, because I think I just want to just have fun with this, have a good time, and not have as much of a mental stress with the process. And I sort of fucked that because I found myself, I was questioning everything. I was. And there were moments where I could be like, cool, I could just check in and not worry, second guess anything or whatever. There were moments, and I was grateful for that. I was happy with that, but I wanted to have that in its entirety. But I was so accustomed at that point to making my own decisions that I just found myself in a place where I've become uncoachable. I don't know if I could get out of that. And that's why I'm doing this off-season myself, and who knows if I'm going to fucking be able to get a coach on board. Maybe at some point it would make sense, especially if I get quite high up the pro leagues, but it's likely that I'm going to do the entirety of the off-season moving forwards for myself, and also a prep for my first pro season, my first proper pro season myself. And that's fucked. It's like a good thing and a bad thing, because I don't want the one thing that hold me back from self-coaching in the first place is I don't want to be a place where I feel like I'm arrogant, that I can't learn from other people and other minds. And I know that there's so much to learn. There's always a place to learn, but I'm also conflicted with wanting to be able to explore things and philosophies myself, because one of the incentives of coaching myself as well was I was coaching my clients, but I wasn't practicing those philosophies because I was being coached by other people. And I'm like, I like the results of my clients again. I want those results myself. And also, if I explore things myself, maybe I could be a better coach. And I felt like that has been the case. But again, it's hard. Because, that's the dilemma. To learn more from other people or learn more from myself. And I think there's benefits to both. I feel like I'm at that place now where I'm just wanting to learn more about myself, and maybe I surprise myself and go, oh, this is great. Or maybe I go for my first pro season, go through that and go, you need someone on your side. Yeah, you've a little bit too cocky with that, maybe. But what a big one. Wow, fuck me. Big one today. Hope you enjoyed that for the first episode with myself. Me just talking and answering questions, essentially. Moving forwards, there's going to be plenty of guests. We've got some good guests that I've already filmed recordings. I'm really excited to show you guys. Very excited to show you guys, because I'm just going over the footage. I'm like, this is absolute gold. And there's shit that I've never seen in a podcast ever in my life. And that's what I want to do. I want to be able to create things that I want to have awesome conversations where it's enlightening for myself and for other people, and to offer perspective into other people's psychology, and to other people's mindsets, and to other people's lifestyles that you would otherwise wouldn't have had. And I want to put myself in the position where I can get that too. And I think that's going to be an adventure that's going to help me develop as a person, because life is all about perspective, and being able to give more to your perspective and will allow more epiphanies. And also it will, again, if you will sort of chase epiphanies with the mindset of the truth. And I want to find out the truth behind people and the mindset. And I want to give people the opportunity to see that. So we started today with myself. There's going to be vlogs following this where you can follow my shit, and I'll still be talking shit on those vlogs. But moving forwards, we'll be talking to other people. Maybe at some point I'll do another Q&A. But anyway, I've rambled enough. Thank you for tuning in. It's too easy.